Welcome into Valley News Now. I'm Adam Shalifin. I'm joined by Sheriff Jesse Jahner.
Good morning, Adam. Thanks for having me in.
Sheriff, so great to have you on New Year's Eve. We'll be talking a little bit about New Year's Eve, talking about also jail capacity, and that's where we begin. It's been an ongoing issue in the region, and it sounds like not just in the Red River Valley, but something that's kind of expanded as an issue across the state at this point. What can you tell us about jail capacity?
Sure. Well, again, thanks for getting me in this morning, and it's good to get this information out because this has been an issue that I, as the sheriff, has been talking about, other local law enforcement leaders have been talking about, because it's really been causing some hurdles for us as far as public safety is concerned. But this issue really goes back to 2020, 2021, in when we were seeing the height of the COVID pandemic. What we started noticing as the pandemic subsided is that we are really starting to struggle with capacity issues at the Cass County Jail. The capacity at the Cass County Jail is 348. We can't go over that. If we do, we need to let the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation know. They're the entity that oversees all county jails. But we're restricted to that 348 capacity, and we started creeping up in our incarceration numbers close to that number, and so really we were looking for solutions as we moved forward. We knew that we were going to need to gain some more capacity, so that really we could provide that public safety piece through the incarceration. And so I began to approach the commissioners back in 2021. Of course, anytime that you're going to build a large structure, this was a approximately $34 million project to add another jail pod. There was some studies that needed to be completed. We needed to look at projections for inmate capacity as we move forward, because we wanted to make sure that we were building it large enough, for the next several years, so we could accommodate, the increase in population in our community and things of that nature. So we approached the commissioners, and they got on board, and we started to build a jail pod. So that's currently under construction. We're looking to take over possession of that sometime in May, hopefully, the middle of May.
Okay.
And that's going to give us another 192 beds. So the total capacity then at the Cass County Jail will be 540. But just to give our listeners kind of a day-to-day observation of what we're dealing with in the jail is our leadership staff has been very good at, for maybe a lack of better terms or concepts, playing checkers every day, because they're continually moving people around within our facility, moving people to other jail facilities, other county facilities where we house some people sometimes to give us some extra space. So they're doing that on a day-to-day basis, so that our officers who are out in the street, out in the communities working, when they come across people and arrest people, there's room for them to bring them to the jail. And of course, our main concern is we want to make sure that the violent people, violent offenders, can be brought in.
And so that's got to be a difficult game to play, where you're determining who needs to stay, who do you make. I guess, where is the line as far as you guys make those difficult decisions?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So, when the officers make those arrests, if we are near that capacity threshold, what they're doing is they're contacting the Cass County Jail, and then there's a discussion between our jail staff and that arresting officer, talking about things like, the person that's under arrest, do they have a violent history? Are their charges violent? If they're not brought to the jail, is there a public safety concern? And so it's really just a conversation back and forth between our jail staff and the arresting officer, and they're making daily decisions on who's coming in and who we're citing and releasing. And so, I can give you some examples of people we might cite and release are going to be people who might be driving around with a suspended license, and no violent history. So in that type of a situation, if we don't have room at the jail, the officer will cite them and release them, give them a court date, and then those people are expected to come back to court at a later time to face those charges. So they're still being charged. They're just not being taken to the jail to post that bond, because there's no room to do that. That's happened a few times on DUIs, driving under the influence arrests. We've had to do that in those. Maybe some lighter theft charges, maybe some lighter arrest warrants. again, people that we do not feel are going to be a public safety issue if they're released back in the community. But it's really hard on law enforcement morale when we have to release people, because officers are out every day trying to maintain public safety, and their jobs are, when they come across people breaking the law, making that arrest and bringing them to jail, so that those individuals can go through the court process. So again, that's still happening, but it's more reliant on now that person being released and that they carry out their part and actually come back to court. And of course, if they don't, then there's a warrant issued for them, and then sometimes we can get backed up on warrants if people aren't following through.
So it just creates a lot of different issues from other angles. One thing I wanted to zero in on is you mentioned DUIs, and so if someone's driving under the influence of drugs or alcohol and they're then stopped, arrested, what happens if they aren't taken into the squad car, taken back to jail? I mean, I assume they're not just hopping back in their cars. What happens next?
Yeah, that's also an excellent question. So typically what the officer will do is, again, contact the jail to see if there's room. Again, if there's room, we're going to take them, of course. But if it's just at capacity and we don't have that additional space, then what that officer is going to do is, of course, work through the scene, conduct their field sobriety tests. If that person meets that level of committing that DUI offense, issuing them a citation, issuing them a court date, and then that officer is really going to remove them from the scene, take them someplace where it's safe for them to be.
So like take them home, or take them to a hospital,
or to maybe a relatives, a friends, a family member's residence.
Okay.
So that someone else can care for them, because if the person's really intoxicated, of course, when they come to the jail, that gives us an opportunity to monitor that person, make sure that they're safe and that they don't go continue to do something. But what we need to keep in mind is, even if someone is arrested for a DUI and brought to the jail, they can still bond out if they have the money and get out immediately anyways. So we're just missing that little piece of removing them from the scene. But our officers will typically do that and take them somewhere else, as you had initially asked. So yeah, I mean, the capacity things really cause a lot of issues for us. We're really looking forward to getting this new pod up and running, and with those 192 beds, that will put us back in a position where we can effectively make those arrests on the street and maintain public safety. But it's been challenging every day.
And so as you look to kind of do this juggling act, if you will, the state penitentiary also becomes involved.
Yeah, so anyone who is at the Cass County Jail or stays at the Cass County Jail sentenced typically to under a year. So anyone who's sentenced to a year and a day, they go out to the state penitentiary. And so we have a number of people that get sentenced to over a year's time and need to be, they then become under the custody of the state penitentiary and need to be transported out to the state pen. But the state pen is also experiencing capacity issues right now. So they're housing a number of their inmates at county jails and contracting with counties to house them there. And so that can create some issues for us in Cass County, because we take on average approximately 5 to 8 people out to the state pen a week. And so if they're not accepting those individuals, then that causes more backup at our facility and can increase our capacity issues. So yeah, it's really been a struggle. I had written a letter to the governor back in the early part of October, and just kind of expressing my concerns for the capacity at the state pen level, because when we decided to add the pod onto our current facility, what wasn't projected in how long that those 192 beds would last was the fact that the state pen wouldn't be taking state pen inmates. And so now with them not doing that, that's going to decrease the amount of time that we're going to have space in our facility. So we really need to work with the state at the state level to increase some of their capacity needs, and that becomes a state issue, a legislative issue. And so I've been working together with legislators to educate them on the issues. They've been great to work with. Our local legislators here are really fantastic to work with, and just trying to educate them on the issue that we're seeing, and hopefully, through doing that, we can look to help the state out with what they need as well.
And so you mentioned in 2021, you kind of started taking these proactive measures, making the commissioners aware, trying to stay ahead of it. Here we are the end of 2024, and we expect additional 192 beds to be available via that new jail pod, which was expected to be finished in May. So that brings you to 540 total beds in May. Is that going to help the situation, or is it going to completely solve the situation?
It's going to give us some breathing room for a period of time, I believe, and most definitely help the situation. But right now, if we look at our capacity issues, we got that 348 capacity. But right now, currently, I mean, I have approximately anywhere from 15 to 25 inmates currently housed at county jails throughout the state. And I've got additional people on what's called our community supervision unit. Those are individuals that are in our custody, in the sheriff's custody. They have light charges, no violent histories, and as long as they meet our parameters where we feel they're safe to be in the community, we'll put an ankle bracelet on them and release them back into the community. And they'll stay at their house. They'll be able to keep their jobs. They'll be able to go get the court-ordered services that they need, whether it's through addiction services or whatever. And they're not housed at the Cass County Jail, so that gives us some additional beds. And then I have 2 deputies that go and check on them all day to make sure that they're completing their services, that they're doing the right things, that they're staying out of trouble. And that program's been very successful for us, a really high success rate, somewhere around 70%, I think, last time I checked. And so that's a really good program. It's a program that we started here in Cass County kind of on our own under the leadership of our jail captain and his leadership team. They came up with this program several years back. As far as I know, we're one of the few sheriff's offices in the whole nation that's doing this type of program. But it's been very successful. It's fiscally responsible because people aren't staying at the jail, so our taxpayers aren't paying for them to be at the jail, their meals, insurance, and things like that. These people are able to keep their jobs and keep those insurance benefits for themselves. So that's the way that we've also been increasing some space needs. But again, literally every day it's like playing checkers and trying to create that additional space so we can maintain public safety.
And it's interesting to hear that because some people nationwide have been highly critical of the high incarceration rate in the United States of America. And so then when we consider a situation where you guys have found ways to find ways to have this monitoring system, does that change the way that you, I guess what I'm asking is, have you learned anything from these challenges that may help you change strategies going forward when you do have the jail space problem solved?
Yeah, I mean, anytime that there's adversity, we're going to try to meet that adversity, but then come up with solutions. And through adversity always comes opportunities. And through what we're doing right now, I think, we've learned a lot of things in how incarceration is being done. We've also learned that there are services out in the community that that people can be successful at. So I really think there needs to be a fine balance between that incarceration piece and community services for people who go down a path of addiction, mental health issues, because literally that's the majority of the people that are in our facility, right? They're in there for addiction and mental health issues. So there are some people obviously that commit very bad offenses and they can't be in the community, and those individuals need to be incarcerated. There's some people that make 1 or 2 mistakes, and sometimes we can get them turned around and get them on the right path, and they can do good things as long as we have some follow-up services for them. So it's a fine balance in both of those. But we know obviously from living in this area that the Cass County community is growing very fast. Yeah. With that growth, agencies have had to add more officers, and when you add more officers, there's going to be more arrests. So we've got more officers working in our area, our population is increasing, and it's only natural that we're going to have to increase the capacity at the jail to meet those needs, because as community grows, you're going to have problems that come along with that. So I think there's a lot of things that we've learned along the ways, different strategies, and we're going to have to take a hard look once we get this pod built. We're going to have to look at what the state's doing. Are they going to increase their capacity? Is there going to be additional state services, or do we need to immediately go back to the drawing boards, our Cass County residents, our Cass County commissioners, and look at, hey, do we need to start planning for maybe another pod in the future, right? So that we can strategically make sure that we're financially equipped to take on something like that, so that it doesn't come all at one time. And so, yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of learning pieces right now.
Well, it's interesting to hear that, just because obviously very different, but with the population growth, you have new high schools, and they're like, hey, we need another new high school in different regions across North Dakota. And so it is kind of one of those things where you're keeping an eye on population growth, and I'm guessing that's not a direct correlation, or maybe it is, with crime. Is that the primary thing you're keeping an eye on to project needs? Is that just population, or how does that process play out?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of criteria that go into or contribute to people that go down a path of committing crimes. I mean, that's going to be, right, it's going to be our population increase. It's going to be financial factors in people's lives. It's going to be addiction issues, mental health issues, homelessness. All of those pieces play a factor in people that come into our facility. And so, as our population increases, I think it's imperative that we as a law enforcement agency, as the Sheriff's Office, keep track of all of those different type of demographics, different type of criteria, so that we can monitor, what are going to be our needs in the future. Because this has been a hard struggle for our agency. Definitely, I feel like our staff has met the challenges very professionally and have been able to maintain that public safety piece. But it's also been challenging, and it wouldn't be anything that I wish on anyone in the future to go through again, because day to day, as the sheriff, I worry about maybe some people who don't always come into our facility that maybe would have if we would have that space. Just making sure that no one is hurt from that person not being being able to come into the jail. So it's a stressful time for all of us. But like I said, we'll always move forward. We're a progressive agency, and we'll meet those challenges. And hopefully, when May comes around and we can get that new pod done, finished up, we'll be able to get back to business as normal.
How many people, if you have a number, were denied or have been denied?
Yeah, so that's really the alarming number. In 2023, we had 904 denials. In 2024, we've had 587 documented denials. And really what that means is those are individuals that law enforcement has come into contact with, and the jail was at capacity. So they contacted the jail, and the jail said that they couldn't take that person. And of course, there was that discussion with the officer to make sure that it wasn't a public safety issue. But those are additional individuals that would have come into our facility. So those are again, like I said, alarming numbers. But I want to assure the public that there was a lot of thought that went into those individuals being released, and that we didn't think that there'd be a public safety issue in doing so. But then also, like I mentioned, that can be a morale issue for law enforcement, because
Sure.
Again, law enforcement is going out every day to protect and serve our communities, and when they come into contact with people that are committing crimes, the expectation from that officer, the expectation from the public, is that those individuals are going to be arrested, removed from the scene, taken to the jail, where they're either post bond or appear in court. And so when that's not happening, that can be a morale issue for all law enforcement. And so again, we'll be in a much better position come May June timeframe.
We'll have to definitely circle back to this around that time in that case. Now, let's shift gears a little bit. Today is the last day of 2024, and New Year's Eve, a fun time. People love it. There's there's partying, there's drinking. I suspect there's some drinking and driving. And how are you guys looking to prepare for New Year's Eve? What does that kind of look like from a law enforcement stance?
Yeah, so historically, New Year's Eve for us really hasn't been much busier than any other night.
Okay.
We always prepare for it because we know that there's probably going to be more people out and about, right? And people are out there celebrating 2024. A number of people had great years, and they want to recognize that. And but with that becomes a lot of additional party type events that people go to.
Sure.
And anytime that people go to those, there's a higher probability that people could consume alcohol and then operate a motor vehicle. And so that's always our concern, right? Is we don't want people to drink and drive, because there can be a lot of consequences that come along with that, and certainly we don't want anyone to get hurt. And so we will have some additional resources out this evening, just to help take additional calls if we get them, but then also look for those individuals who might choose to drink and operate a motor vehicle. But again, traditionally, just our regular calls for service, we have not seen increases in those typically on New Year's Eve.
What do you guys typically see New Year's Eve?
It's going to be just our regular calls for service. We might get some loud party calls at some residences, but typically it's going to be just our normal calls for service. And then, like I said, with having additional resources out, we'll have some additional units monitoring our roadways, just to be out there looking for impaired driving.
And when you say additional resources, you mean additional officers?
Additional patrol units,
okay,
than what we normally have.
And are there like particular areas, or you guys are looking into more certain party areas? I know I from talking to different police members, for example, on Halloween, maybe a stronger presence in the downtown, stuff like that?
Sure. Well, as most of our listeners know, as the Cass County Sheriff's Office, we have jurisdiction over the whole county, so we can patrol in Fargo, West Fargo, and the rural areas. Typically, we try to concentrate our patrol in the rural areas, because if we don't go out there, then our rural residents don't have any law enforcement, because a number of those cities don't have enough money to have their own police departments. So we try to concentrate our patrol efforts out there. But really, as far as impaired driving, the additional resources that we have, we're going to concentrate those if we pay attention to that impaired driving time frame in more of the high traffic areas. That's what we really do. But other than that, we don't have any specific areas that we would be targeting as of right now that I would be able to mention to you.
Very good. Do you have any tips for people just looking to have a good time, having a good, safe time tonight?
Yeah, I think, we always talk about this when it comes to impaired driving, right? Plan ahead, prepare. If you know that you're going to be going to any sort of a party event and you're going to choose to, consume alcohol, that you're making those preparations in advance for designated drivers. We're lucky nowadays, right? Because not only do we have cab services, but we have a lot of Uber drivers. So I think there's a number of ways that people can get around this evening. I'm going to assume that there's going to be extra Uber drivers available this evening. It's probably a big night for them to make some extra money. And so just being able to contact an Uber, a cab, or a family member to drive, and just, it's not worth it to take that chance. Most people have the day off tomorrow. So it's not like you need to hurry up, get up in the morning and go get your vehicle and make it to work. You probably got a little bit of extra time tomorrow. So if you do have someone that needs to give you a ride, I'm sure people will have time tomorrow to go get their vehicles, and it won't cause a heartache for them. So just preparation, just preparing ahead and making sure that they make those travel arrangements. Excellent. Anything else you want to touch on as far as New Year's Eve goes? No, I just hope that everyone has a great evening tonight and everyone stays safe, and let's bring in 2025, right? Yeah. We talked about so many serious issues that I want to end on a light note. Mm-hmm. In 2025, we got two awesome football games coming up. We got the Vikings and the Packers. That's on Valley News. If you're a Vikings fan. Are you a... I'm not, but hey, I'm excited for the Vikings because a number of people are around here. I'm a Cowboys fan, and they are doing great, so I don't have anything to cheer for. I'm a Bears fan. Maybe we're both Vikings fans in the playoffs this year. Anybody who's playing the Packers, I'm a fan of. Yeah, but definitely a Bison fan, so we're that's the other one I was going to talk about. I went to NDSU. That's where I graduated from. Okay. So that's my school. So I'm excited for the Bison game on Monday evening. It's going to be an excellent game. What are your thoughts just as Polasek so far? I feel like he's just done such a great job. He obviously inherited a great situation, but the team's been humming all year. Yeah, he seems like they've been doing great this year, that they've really been gelling as a team, that he's connecting with them as coach, and that's obviously important because you got to have teamwork. Right. And you got to have respect from that leader, from the coach. So they seem to be doing a great job. He seems to be doing a great job, he and his coaching staff. So obviously they made it to the final game, right? So they've definitely accomplished a lot this year. You think they're going to get the win? I'm going to put you on the spot. I want predictions both games. Predictions? Well, I'm not good at number predictions, but I'm going to predict that the Bison will take it at the end of the game. It'll probably go down to the wire, but I think they'll come through in the end.
And I think I misspoke. It was Vikings-Lions, of course, this weekend. I think the Vikings, I don't know. I got to get back to my
Yeah,
my
you know,
notes
it's
on
always
that
hard
one.
with them because they get into the playoffs in the past years. They always seem to kind of die at the end.
Yeah.
There, but it seems like maybe a little bit different team this year, and they've been doing well. So yeah, hopefully they can do well and make it to the Super Bowl at least.
That would be fun. That'd be a good time. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Sheriff.
Yep,
Always a
thanks, Adam.
pleasure. Some great information today. And we'll see you next time. We'll see you soon. Thank you all for tuning in on Valley News.